So we're going to continue with you since you participated. So what was the item in the bad bucket that we're working on?
Yelling.
Yeah. Mother or father?
Mother.
What don't you like about the yelling?
Oh, the noise.
The noise. And then we discover that your inner child is trying to, what need do you have to create the noise?
It was be part of my family, right? It was that.
You have to tell me.
Yeah. To be a part of my family, cannot be the excluded from the family.
Okay, excluded from the family. Okay, now she's gained awareness that even though her family's crazy, even though they yell, even though they're sarcastic, and we don't even know about the bad bucket of your dad. What's about your dad?
Alcoholic and neglectful.
Okay, alcoholic and neglectful. So this is the family that she wants to belong to.
Excited.
Okay? So this is a very key word. When she says, I don't want to be excluded, this could also mean I want to be excluded. And look at her confirmation. Okay? So now we have gained awareness around Aniela's issue. I want to be excluded from this family. This family sucks. They yell, they're neglectful, they're alcoholics, and I am better than that. And how are you going to not become your parents? Do you drink?
No, I do the opposite. All of the bad things. are
Okay.
the two
You
kills.
don't yell?
No.
You're not neglectful? Okay. So, I was going to probe on that one.
The neglectful part? No, I'm not. I think I'm just a little bit more in the 100 part. 85 neglectful.
Neglectful to what or to whom?
It's just every time I just put myself first. I don't really care.
Okay, so
About
you're
others.
not neglectful to yourself?
No.
Okay, but they were neglectful to who? Okay, so that's a behavior to counteract
Yeah.
that behavior that they were neglectful to you. But you have an issue with it because you judge the fact that you don't care for others, which I still don't agree. I think
Yeah.
that needs to be,
Yeah.
Worked through.
No, I know that. Yeah, that's a judgment. I know.
Right, but you say, if they were neglectful to me, then I'm gonna come first. That is a way of you excluding yourself from the family, and it's self-preservation. So it makes sense. Okay, so when we get the client to the teenager stage, that they are now aware that they are indeed their parents, that their shadow is everything that's in the bad bucket, now we can take them into adult. But let me say something. What happens when we're biologically teenagers?
Puberty, right?
Okay, puberty's one thing. What else happens when we're biologically or psychologically teenagers?
You're developing, you're kind of learning who you are.
Conflict.
What was that?
Conflict.
Conflict?
Identity crisis.
Yep. It is very important to let your client have a teenager phase. I am not a believer that you just bring them down to adulthood. They need to get into the sort of comfort zone that they're learning something new about themselves, that they've now become aware. They might hate you, they might hate themselves, they might be angry that they've just learned that they're their parents, a number of things. So sometimes what I will do with clients is I will let them be in this teenager stage for weeks or months. And their homework I will only have them do is steps 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. Because it's going to lead to the same thing over and over and over. Their inner child's going to tell them the same thing. They're going to realize that they have the same need. Because that was the need that was what?
Okay. Unmet.
Unmet. What was it that you said?
I said their parents.
Okay. So, let them understand, wallow, cry, whatever their unmet need. Because if they don't understand that that need was unmet, then they're not going to give themselves permission in the adult to meet it for themselves. So this might take months, and this might be all you talk about, and all you talk about, and how horrible my mother was, and she neglected me, and my dad's an alcoholic, and oh my God, and they yell so much. And you might see the client week after week and be like, oh my God, are they going to ever say anything else? They will. But sometimes we just have to wallow in what we missed out on. That's just the way it is. I can't still get past this divorce. Like, I am having trouble. So every time I go to therapy, I'm like, what happened? What happened? What happened? Consciously, I understand what happened. But subconsciously, I don't. And it links exactly back to the unmet need that I had as a child of abandonment. It's just reawakening my cells, my memory, my unmet need, that I too was left in a crib crying and no one came to get me. So it doesn't matter how much I cry and how much I text him and how much I, do whatever I do, he's not coming to get me. He's my mother. So when we can get the client to just understand it's just a repetitious behavior of an unmet need from way little, from their inner child, they start to gain understanding that it's not the person. And if Jennifer were here, I would explain this is why we don't take things personally. That people aren't doing it to us. Doesn't mean that the situation or the scenario doesn't hurt any less. It still hurts. But I can think beyond what this is. Not when I'm wallowing, not when I'm in victim, that's okay. But if you allow your client to sort of stay there like teenagers, eventually what happens when you get out of your teen phase?
Adulthood.
You would hope by age and stage, if they were allowed to be teenagers appropriately, they will go into adulthood. So my nephew has now graduated college. He got his ticket thing squared away, and he now got accepted to Georgetown, Masters in Finance, and he's working in Washington, D.C. He moved in with his girlfriend, and he is doing really well. So my sister comes over the other day, and we're talking about the girlfriend, and I love the girlfriend. And she's like, oh my God, he's doing so well. Like, he really, because now he's 22, so he's out of teenage, and if you were allowed to yell and scream and have your temper tantrums and dye your hair and smoke and drink and whatever your teenage self wanted, then you were eligible, so to speak, to go into adulthood. Do we remember what Erickson said about stages of development? There were 8 stages of development, and what did Erickson say if we skipped a stage,
The end of, going back to it in your
Yeah.
adulthood.
You came back.
or whatever thing, it comes back with a vengeance.
Yeah.
It haunts you. Okay, and I'm not necessarily sure if Erickson said that or if that was discovered after, but using Erickson's model, we discover that people will go back to a developmental stage if it is not completed. So this is no different. Let your client be a teenager as long as they need to be a teenager. Then we take them to adult. So 4, I need you to define being excluded from the family or not excluded from the family. Included in the family or excluded, you decide. This is where you let your client free think.
Excluded,
You want to define what?
being excluded from.
Okay, define being excluded from the family, and it must be measurable. Why must a definition be measurable?
So you can actually do it?
Exactly. The child does not want you
To do it.
to hold yourself accountable.
Has to be measured.
Do you remember on the other board before I deleted it that I asked about like assumptions and about the client, and I said that, you know, all the things that I told you about her, and then you guys gave some things about your birthday party and all of that? Okay. That is the reason we define it. Because if you are defining that being a good parent is being Team Julian, to get together to have a party for him, and that's how he defines being a good dad, but yet he goes home and he beats his kid, he's still a good dad in his mind. So we need to know, which is fine if that's what you define it as, but that's not what it is, right? So we need to define the need that was unmet, because it's going to be the only way that we meet our own needs is if we define them. If not, what are we going to do? We're going to keep looking for what?
Validation.
We're going to keep looking for someone else, a version of our parents, to meet our needs. And then we'll never turn into the adult. And we'll stay in mother, father, child, rather than adult, adult, adult. Transaction, remember?
Yeah.
Okay, so define for me, Aniela, what being excluded from the family means in a measurable definition. And you could talk it out,
Okay.
and we'll get it. Sometimes this is where you help your client, so you may not know right off the bat.
Okay, so,
Do you want to be excluded?
yeah, being out of the house 5 days a week. I guess, I don't know.
Okay, but first, before step 5,
Oh, okay. Oh, that's the.
I need you to define what it means to be excluded or not excluded from the family.
Being excluded means.
How would you define being included or not excluded? Because you said to not be excluded.
Right. So,
Do your parents think you're an outcast?
no.
They don't think you're different than everyone else? You're the strange one, the weird one?
No, because the thing is, my brother is like me. And
Okay.
the other brother that I have that I met once, my father knows him better. He's the same way as we are.
Okay,
So we are all the same thing, pretty much the same way.
okay. So go back to your bad bucket
And,
or your good bucket and tell me why you don't want to be excluded from your family. If you were to be excluded from the family, what would this mean? Who would you be?
Who am I? Yeah, exactly.
Or if you were included in the family, who would you be? Listen up. You have to make your client think. Remember, therapy, clients come to find their own answers.
I guess, I don't know why I said not to be. Because I never wanted to be included in the family.
Okay, so you don't want to be included.
No.
Okay. I normally wouldn't do this to a client. I would hold them accountable with what they say. But we're learning here, so it's a different flow. Okay, you don't want to be included from the family. So define being excluded or not included. What would that look like?
Just independence.
Okay. Now, define independence measurably. How would you know that you're independent? Now we're getting somewhere.
Being here, actually. Being here in college.
Okay, so attending college.
Yeah.
What else? Can you measure that she's in college?
Yes.
Right? You can see and measure that she's in college. Okay. What else defines your independence?
I'm looking for a job.
Look at that. So having a job. What else?
And it's just a plan that I have, that I already talked to my mom. When I am 21, I'm getting out of my house. I'm getting my own apartment.
Is that why you need the job?
Yeah.
Okay. The number one thing that fucks us up is when we say we're gonna do something and we don't do it. At the end of the day, why we're all mad at our parents is because they promised us something and they didn't follow through. Ultimately, at the very high level was unconditional love. We didn't get it. Check, didn't get it. Right there, they promised us something, well, we thought, and we didn't get it. They promised us a rabbit, in my case, we didn't get it. What did they promise you that you didn't get? A safe home? You didn't get it. What didn't you get?
Security?
Security. What didn't you get?
Safe home.
A safe home. Tanisha, what didn't you get? A mom that was home with you because your auntie was home and your mom was working? Trisha, you didn't get playtime? And what didn't you get?
Peaceful home.
Peaceful home. So we all didn't get something that we wanted and we were promised. When we self-betray, which we all do, it comes out in steps 4 and 5 and 6. If you say you're gonna do something, do it. For yourself, I'm not talking about other people. So, Aniela, what is the likelihood that you're gonna have a job and by when? This is how you make the client be held accountable. So this is related to step 5.
By March next year.
March 2019,
Yeah.
okay. Full-time or part-time?
Full time.
You have a salary range in mind?
No.
Okay. Okay, any specific field?
Related to psychology.
Okay. Where are you gonna move?
Out of Florida. I don't want to stay here.
Out of Florida, and how much is your rent?
What state
800.
do you wanna move?
Nothing finished.
What state you want to move to? I'll give you that.
800, okay, do you want a roommate?
No. It's very.
Okay, so now she has defined independence. Her definition of independence is that she's studying in college, that she's gonna have a job, and that she's gonna be able to live on her own. This is a realistic thing. Did you guys ever learn SMART goals? What do they stand for? SMART goals. If you don't know what they mean, you can't understand what goals are. Goals need to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. Is it specific? Do you have a time frame? Is it attainable? These are attainable. Are these realistic? Yes. And are they timely? Yes. She wants to move out of Florida by 21. She wants to have a job by 2019, and she's already in college. Now, does anyone see a problem with anything on this list?
Yes.
Yes.
What?
Moving out of Florida, like the actual state itself. She's never lived on her own before, and she's gonna completely change different.
Okay, but people have done it.
No, I'm not saying that, but
But
if
people
there's
have done it. What is the problem on this list?
expectations or
What?
How old
No.
are you right now? Aren't you 20 right now?
No.
19 still?
What is the problem on this board?
The rent.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
That was supposed to be
Rent.
our first answer, but
The rent, unless she moves to like.
No, no,
some little
no.
rinky-dink
What is
town.
the problem
it's
on
amazing.
that board?
what's
If this is
missing?
her definition of independence.
her definition needs to be redefined?
One aspect of it, I think, needs to be redefined. Her definition of independence is attending college. She is holding herself accountable to attend college for the rest of her life, or be an eternal student. Right, you're like, what's wrong with that? Hell, I agree, what's wrong with that? So am I. But there's a value system there. And unless you're learning, you're not what? You're not worthy or living.
Did that set you apart from your family?
And so, your job is to point that out to the client, not because you're gonna change her mind. That is not our job. To bring awareness that, you know, you might not always get a chance to be seeking a degree, or have you ever thought of some self-study,
I do.
or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I do that.
And you open the conversation because there is a value there. So that is the problem on that board. Other than that, that is okay. So, I have a question. Did your parents go to college? So why would that make you excluded from the family?
Because me learning all the time was the silent, that the only peaceful moment that I had at my house.
Okay, so it has more to do with the peace than
Yeah.
the learning.
Yeah.
Did your parents hold down jobs?
I think my dad did.
Or your mom didn't? Okay, and who paid your mom's bills?
She did. No.
How?
My mom, actually.
Your mom had the job?
Yeah.
Who paid your dad's bills?
My mom did for a couple of months, a couple of
Okay.
years, I think.
Write that down, because that could be a learned behavior.
Mm.
If she wants to be excluded from this family, you find out why. The education is dealing with the silence. She wants a silent space. Okay, and usually where do you study? In a library, and it's quiet. But if her father doesn't have a job and the mother is paying the bills, you may repeat that behavior And like that thing that I showed, you might become the man. And you might be the moneymaker because you're thinking, believing, not true, that you're independent. If you're the one who holds the financial power. Look at me. And moving out of Florida. Who moved out of Florida?
No one.
No one. Okay, so that's a clear distinction. Who moved out at 21?
No one.
No. Okay. So that's a biggie. That's really the one that is like, I'm doing it different. Yeah, I'm doing this. Okay. You might want to look at the reality of the rent
Yeah, it's just
and the non-roommate thing.
I have 2 years.
Just
so-
saying.
I have 2 years. Okay.
But that's more ignorance probably because you haven't done your research and stuff like that. Or that you can afford it. There are areas of the world that you can, but you may not want to live in a shoebox or an ant pile, you know, so that might change. But this one is the one that really holds her to una esclavitud, to a slavery. Because if she's always learning, there is a value. And this can be a problem if she's the only money maker. So you just probe, and you don't always do this at this first session. I'm just trying to get the answers. Okay. Then you ask the client, how do you meet the need by yourself? She's already answered that within this question. Okay? You're going to get a job, and with that, you're going to pay your bills. Okay? And you're going to pay your college, or you're just getting loans, or?
My mom is paying it, but I'm gonna pay her back.
Okay, so you would have to write that.
Yeah.
And be specific and how much, and each month, and by what date. Okay? The reason that I say, how do you meet this need by yourself? I oftentimes get a lot of clients that want love. Or they want quality time with their partner. And how do you do quality time with your partner when it involves a second person? Because they forgot that their partner is their inner child. So you have them do it by themselves. Maybe take a bubble bath, go get a massage themselves. Quality time could be sitting and reading a book, going to a movie alone. It's never about the other person. And we have to get our clients away from getting their needs met by the other person. Does this not mean that you're going to be in a relationship and you're each going to have, that's coming. When we do the I and the we, and we do the triad in relationships. But for now, we're doing individual counseling, and we want our client to meet their own needs. Then I have something that's called the rule book or the philosophy of life. And most people don't have a philosophy of life. So what I have clients do is I have them get a notebook and write down the non-negotiables. What is a non-negotiable in your life? Everybody has at least one non-negotiable. If not, we're in trouble.
Loyalty?
No, it has to be a non-negotiable, like on Tuesdays I bowl, or I spend every Thursday night with my kid, or I will not go on a date unless I tuck my kid in, things like that.
Can't step out the house without looking fresh.
Okay. Can't look good looking at the house without looking fresh, that's
Can't
fine.
Just can't do it.
That's yours. And you put that. Now, just FYI, on a side
You
note,
can't say that
you
to
have
me
to
without
define
getting fired.
fresh, and you have to see if it's interfering with other life activities, like coming to class on time.
It has nothing to do with it. I'm
Well,
up.
I don't know what it has
I'm
to
just
do
saying,
with
I'm up very,
but
very early. you know.
I have to,
I get up like super
She
I
has
early.
to
get a
it
jab.
out.
I
I
had
get
to.
it.
She had to get it
Respect. But I get up super early specifically to iron my stuff, you know, pick up my outfit the night before, then I iron my stuff in the morning, try to shower, or good stuff.
So that's your non-negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? What's a non-negotiable in your life? What values? Yes, non-negotiables are linked to your values. You have a value of a very strong positive body image. All non-negotiables are related to values. This is where we break our own rules. When I was negotiating with myself, because my ex-husband was not negotiating, I was in my own brain negotiating the bullshit, I started noticing that I was breaking my non-negotiables.